Hello, super friends, and welcome to episode 3 of The Antidote. We'd like to begin today's episode with some amazing news. In September, the Colorado Naloxone Project received a $500,000 grant from the Colorado Office of Behavioral Health to purchase naloxone. With that grant, we began one of the most aggressive recruitment campaigns since the Lakers went after LeBron and since Tampa Bay went after Brady. We wooed hospitals. We took them to fancy dinners. We took long walks on the beach. We promised them primo, life-saving product. We asked permission from their fathers. Then we got on one knee. We looked them directly in the eye and said, "Baby, will you make the Colorado Naloxone Project the happiest harm reduction project on the face of the planet and commit to our mission of dispensing naloxone to all your patients at risk of overdose?" And in September alone, 50 hospitals said yes. Yes. 1,000 times yes. And now that brings us to a grand total of 110 hospitals and emergency departments who have committed to the Colorado Naloxone Project, well over 95% of hospitals in our state. Now, with our partners at the Colorado Office of Behavioral Health and Signal Behavioral Health, we have purchased 6,324 Narcan kits that will be shipped to all our hospitals and EDs by the end of October. These 6,324 kits represent 6,324 opportunities to address our opioid overdose crisis, 6,324 opportunities to send a message of hope and empowerment to people who struggle with drug use, 6,324 opportunities to reinvent how we deliver medical care to those at risk of overdose. Every single one of them is an opportunity to save a life. Which brings us to the topic of today's episode. You may now dispense naloxone. Look here. These are the hospitals across the state that have committed to dispensing naloxone. And man, do we get around. We are on the cusp of having naloxone available in almost every Colorado community. We have in front of us one of the greatest opportunities to innovate and address the opioid overdose epidemic in a generation. And to all the hospitals, emergency departments, physicians, nurses, social workers, healthcare workers, I want to say thank you. Your commitment means the world to us. More importantly, it will mean the world to your patients and your communities. But then I want to ask a simple question. Are you ready? Because saying yes and doing the actual work are two very, very different things. If these 6,324 kits don't get into the hands of patients, then everything we have done and committed to will be for naught. Naloxone on a shelf doesn't save lives. Naloxone in the hands of patients with opioid use disorders and patients on chronic opioid therapy does. Since September, we've been running some numbers. How many patients do we see in Colorado hospitals every single year at risk of overdose? The answer, based on claims data shared by our partners with the Colorado Hospital Association, says that in 2020, we saw 65,000 patients who are at risk of overdose, a risk born of long-term opioid use, opioid dependence, opioid overdose, and opioid misuse. This 65,000 covers emergency department visits, hospital admissions, and outpatients visits. And while it seems like a significant amount, 65,000 is actually a gross underrepresentation of the true number of patients at risk of overdose, since it's based on claims data. And here's the thing about claims data. If a physician doesn't specifically document one of the risks, or if a medical biller doesn't bill for it, then it's not reported. The need, in reality, is much greater than 65,000. But the bottom line is the same. The need for naloxone and the services you are now able to provide is tremendous. So I have a challenge for you. I'd like to issue this challenge to every healthcare worker and hospital involved in the Colorado Naloxone Project. Take the naloxone we are providing and give it away. Give it away as quickly as humanly possible to every patient you identify at risk. Do not tarry, do not pause, do not waste a moment. We are in the midst of the worst overdose epidemic in our history, one compounded by COVID, fed by fentanyl, and one which shows no signs of abating. The time to act is now, and the tools with which to act are in your hands. And as we stand at the altar of medicine and are asked the sacred questions of, do you commit to treating those who use drugs with dignity and respect? Do you commit to helping address the opioid crisis? Do you commit to helping save lives? If you say, I do, then you are now a proud member of the Colorado Naloxone Project. You may now dispense Naloxone. This is Don Stater, signing off on behalf of the Colorado Naloxone Project. Overdose is preventable. Naloxone save lives. There is no honeymoon. It's time to get to work.